I didn't have much going on, and I didn't see much of a future.
It kind of leads you the way it's supposed to work out, and I think that's what happened here. It was just a good time. I was worried about people knowing about that. I'm a human being just like him.
Many fans of Alan Jackson have long seen him as a calm, honest voice in country music, but few knew the deeper story he kept hidden for years. Now, at 67, he is finally opening up, and the truth is more powerful than anyone expected. Behind the fame and hit songs lies a personal journey filled with struggle, strength, and quiet courage. So, what exactly has he been holding back all this time? And why has he chosen this moment to share it finally? Alan Jackson's health battle. In 2011, Alan Jackson was diagnosed with Charcot-Marie tooth disease, a genetic condition that slowly damages the nerves and muscles. It ran in his family. His father had it, and so did his grandmother and sister. But Alan chose to keep it private. For 10 years, he continued performing, writing songs and touring, even as the illness began to affect his balance and movement. He didn't want sympathy or attention. He just wanted to keep doing what he loved. In October 2017, he received a major honor when he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Loretta Lynn, who was recovering from a stroke, came in person to welcome him. It was a deeply emotional moment. Then, in 2018, he was also inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. These honors weren't just awards. They were a powerful recognition of a career that helped shape country music. In September 2021, Alan finally shared the truth publicly during an appearance on The Today Show. He explained that the disease wasn't life-threatening, but it had no cure and was getting worse. He didn't want fans to misunderstand his condition during performances. He wanted them to know the truth. He said he would keep performing for as long as he could, inspired by legends like Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson, who never truly stepped away from the stage. Then, in 2022, Alan made a heartbreaking decision. He announced his final tour, called Last Call, One More for the Road. Fans immediately understood this wasn't just another tour, it was a farewell. After more than 40 years in country music, he was preparing to step back. He revealed that the disease was making it harder for him to stand, play guitar, and perform on stage. Still, instead of quietly disappearing, he chose to give his fans one last, unforgettable experience. The tour began in June 2022 and sold out quickly in over 30 cities. Tickets were gone within hours, and people traveled long distances just to see him one final time. For many, these shows were more than concerts. They were emotional goodbyes to an artist whose music had been part of their lives for decades. So, at what stage did Jackson make his breakthrough? Did everything start smoothly? Let's find out. Alan Jackson's breakthrough moment. In 1989, Alan Jackson made a bold move that would change his life forever. On June 26th, he became the very first artist signed to Arista Nashville, a brand new branch of the famous Arista Records. At the time, country music was going through a big transformation, with rising stars like Garth Brooks and Clint Black quickly taking over the spotlight. In the middle of all that change, Jackson's name began to stand out in a quiet but powerful way. The president of Arista Nashville, Tim Du Bois, saw something special in him right away. Jackson's sound was raw and deeply traditional, yet it still felt fresh and honest, like a voice from the past speaking clearly in the present. Being the very first artist signed to the label was a huge moment. It wasn't just a contract, it was the beginning of a journey that would shape country music for years to come. Photos from that signing still sit safely in Jackson's private collection, capturing a moment full of hope and promise. Just a few months later, in September 1989, Jackson released his very first single, Blue-Blooded Woman. Everyone hoped it would make a big splash, but it didn't. The song only climbed to number 45 on the Billboard Country chart, missing the top 40 entirely. For a brand new artist, that kind of start could be worrying. People began to question whether Jackson's old-school style already felt outdated in a fast-changing music scene. Still, Jackson didn't back down. Instead of losing confidence, he became even more determined. Years later, he would admit that the disappointment from that first song lit a fire inside him. Blue-Blooded Woman may not have been a hit, but it introduced a voice that refused to be ignored. Then came the turning point. On January 15, 1990, Jackson released his second single, Here in the Real World, and everything changed. The song connected deeply with listeners. It spoke about real life, the struggles, the heartbreak, the rough edges, and the simple beauty of everyday moments. Fans could see themselves in it, and that made all the difference. The song climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Country Chart and even reached number 1 in Canada. Suddenly, the doubts faded. Critics who once questioned him began to pay attention. This wasn't just another song, it was a breakthrough. It proved that honesty and simplicity could still win hearts in a changing industry. From that moment on, Jackson's career began to soar. What followed was nothing short of remarkable. He went on to achieve 27 consecutive singles in the top 10, a level of consistency that was incredibly rare. With just one powerful song, Jackson showed that country music didn't need to follow trends to succeed. It just needed to tell the truth. Soon after, on February 27, 1990, he released his debut album, Here in the Real World. The album didn't just rely on the success of the single, it created its own lasting impact. It stayed on the charts for over a year and produced 4 major hits: Here in the Real World, Wanted, Chasing That Neon Rainbow, and I'd Love You All Over Again. That last song carried a special meaning. Jackson wrote it for his wife, Denise, to celebrate their 10th wedding anniversary. It wasn't just a love song, it was personal, heartfelt, and real. The song reached number 1, giving Jackson his very first chart-topping hit. Even more impressive, Jackson wrote or co-wrote 9 out of the album's 10 songs. For a new artist, that level of creative control was rare and showed just how deeply involved he was in his music. The album went on to sell over 2 million copies in the United States, earning double platinum status. By then, it was clear his voice, his stories, and his style had truly connected with people. Then, on May 14, 1991, Jackson released his second album, Don't Rock the Jukebox, and it took things to another level. The album produced 4 number-1 singles in a row. The title track, Don't Rock the Jukebox, followed by Someday, Dallas, and Love's Got a Hold on You. Each song hit the top spot with perfect precision, like arrows landing exactly on target. But then, something even more eerie arrived. How did he rise to fame? And how was he seen by the world? Let's take a closer look. Jackson's rise to stardom. At one point, Alan Jackson made a quiet but powerful visit to the grave of Hank Williams in Montgomery. That moment stayed with him long after he left. It wasn't just a visit. It felt almost like stepping into history, into the spirit of country music itself. Later, when Jackson went into the studio, he recorded a song late at night, and somehow that same feeling followed him. You can hear it clearly, the stillness, the sadness, the deep emotion, in every single note. Critics loved the album too. Entertainment Weekly gave it an A rating, which was incredibly rare for a country album at the time. By the end of it all, Alan Jackson was no longer just another new artist trying to make a name. He had already become one of the leading voices of the neo-traditional country movement, helping bring traditional sounds back into the spotlight. Then, just 1 year later, on October 6, 1992, Jackson released A Lot About Living and A Little About Love. One song in particular, Chattahoochee, became something much bigger than a hit. It turned into a true American anthem. People didn't just listen to it, they connected with it, lived it, and made it part of their everyday lives. The music video, which showed Jackson water skiing in jeans, became unforgettable and helped cement the song's place in pop culture. By 1994, it had won both Song of the Year and Single of the Year at the Country Music Association Awards. The entire album was a massive success. It sold over 6 million copies, becoming the biggest achievement of Jackson's career at the time. 5 of its singles reached the top 5, and 2, She's Got the Rhythm and I Got the Blues and Chattahoochee, went all the way to number 1. Jackson even co-wrote 7 out of the 10 songs, working alongside stars like Randy Travis. In fact, even the album's title came from a line in Chattahoochee, showing just how powerful and influential that song really was. But then came a bold decision that could have changed everything. In 1994, Alan Jackson made a surprising move. He left 1-0-1-0 Management, the very team that had helped him rise from nothing to superstardom. This wasn't done out of anger or conflict. It was a decision driven by belief. Jackson wanted full control over his music, his message, and how he was seen by the world. Instead, he chose to work with Gary Overton. That single move sent shockwaves through Nashville. That same year, on June 28, 1994, he released Who I Am. And just like that, his risk paid off in a big way. The album shot straight to number 1 on the country charts and reached number 5 on the Billboard 200. In its very first week, it sold over 100,000 copies. The album produced 4 number 1 hits: Summertime Blues, Gone Country, Livin' on Love, and I Don't Even Know Your Name. By January 1999, it had gone 4 times platinum, proving its lasting success. Some versions of the album even included a special remix of Chattahoochee for international audiences, showing that Jackson's music was no longer just an American favorite. It was spreading across the world. Critics once again praised his work. Entertainment Weekly gave the album a solid B, highlighting its simple, honest production and Jackson's calm, confident voice. However, the list of musicians involved read like a who's who of Nashville's finest. But how was Jackson's beginning? Did he come from a humble background? Let's find out. Alan Jackson's early life. Alan Jackson was born on October 17, 1958, in the quiet, close-knit town of Newnan. Life there was simple, and his family lived modestly. His parents, Ruth and Eugene, worked hard every single day just to keep things going. Ruth spent long hours working in school cafeterias, serving meals to children, while his father, known as Daddy Gene, worked as a mechanic at a Ford plant, fixing cars and doing whatever it took to provide for his family. They didn't have much money, but what they lacked in wealth, they made up for with strong values. In their home, lessons like working hard, staying humble, and keeping faith and music close to your heart were deeply rooted. Those values would later shape Alan's life in powerful ways. Their house itself told a story of struggle and creativity. It was built around his grandfather's old tool shed, making it small, crowded, and often noisy. With 7 people living under one roof, Alan and his 4 older sisters, Diane, Kathy, Carol, and Connie, privacy was almost impossible. Every corner was shared, every sound echoed, and quiet moments were rare. Yet despite the tight space, the house was filled with something far more important: love, warmth, and the comforting smell of Ruth's home-cooked meals. Growing up in that little shed wasn't easy, but Alan found an escape: music. It became his safe place, something that lifted him beyond the struggles of daily life. When he turned 16, he bought his very first guitar for just $50. It wasn't fancy or expensive, but to him, it was priceless. That simple instrument opened the door to a new world. He spent hours every day teaching himself how to play. He practiced chords over and over, his fingers growing sore, while he sang along to records by legends like Hank Williams and Gene Watson. Those voices inspired him, guiding his sound and shaping the style he would later become known for. At 17, Alan experienced something that would change him forever. He stepped onto a stage for the first time during a high school production of Oklahoma. Standing under the bright lights, feeling the energy of the moment, something clicked inside him. A spark was lit, a deep passion that would never go away. But life wasn't all music and dreams. Alan had been working since he was just 12 years old. His first job was at a shoe repair shop, where he learned the value of responsibility at a young age. After that, he took on any job he could find. He sold cars, built furniture, worked as a carpenter, and even helped construct houses. Each job was tough, but each one taught him something important. Eventually, he had to leave school, not because he wanted to, but because his family needed the extra income. It was a difficult choice, but one he made out of love and duty. Still, every job he took became part of his education. Selling cars taught him how to talk to people and understand them. Carpentry taught him patience, precision, and focus. Every hour he worked and every dollar he earned brought him one small step closer to something bigger. As time went on, Alan decided to chase his passion more seriously. He formed his first band, calling it Dixie Steel. They weren't famous, and they weren't playing in big arenas. Instead, they performed in small bars, VFW halls, and local community events all across Georgia. Some nights, they made just enough money to cover gas. Other nights, they barely earned anything at all. And through all the long days and uncertain nights, Alan had something else that kept him strong and helped him push through the difficult times. So, what could it be? Could it be someone special? Let's find out. Alan and Denise's journey. Denise and Alan Jackson first met as teenagers in high school, where their story quietly began. What started as a simple young romance soon grew into something much deeper. They fell in love, not just with each other, but with the life they dreamed of building together. On December 15, 1979, when they were both just 21 years old, they made a bold and heartfelt decision. They got married. They didn't have much money at all. There were no grand decorations, no expensive venue, no luxury. Their wedding was small and simple, but what they lacked in wealth, they made up for with love, belief, and commitment. Denise saw something special in Alan long before the world ever did. She believed in his music, in his voice, and in his dream, even during the times when that dream seemed far away and almost impossible. To keep their lives going, Denise worked as a flight attendant, spending long hours in the air, often tired but determined. Meanwhile, Alan stayed focused on his passion, chasing music with everything he had. Life wasn't easy. There were days when money was tight, when bills kept piling up faster than they could pay them. There were arguments, moments of doubt, and nights filled with worry. But through it all, they held on to each other. They refused to give up. By the early 1980s, Alan was still performing with his band, Dixie Steel. The crowds were small, sometimes barely filling the room. The pay was low, often not enough to cover much, but he kept going, night after night, pouring his heart into every performance. Even then, he was living the kind of life that country songs are made of, filled with hard work, love, struggle, and a quiet but powerful hope. Then, in 1985, Alan and Denise made a life-changing decision. They packed everything they owned into a single U-Haul trailer. Leaving behind their hometown of Newnan, Georgia, they set out for Nashville, Tennessee, the heart of country music. They had no job waiting for them, no record deal, and very little money. All Alan had were a few songs and a dream that refused to die. It was a huge risk. Everything could have gone wrong. But they believed in each other, and that belief gave them the courage to move forward. Denise, especially, never stopped believing in Alan's talent. When they arrived in Nashville, reality hit hard. Their apartment was small and modest, and every bill felt like a heavy burden. Denise worked even harder, taking extra flights just to make sure they could survive. Alan did whatever jobs he could find, holding on to his dream while doing what was necessary to get by. Then, something unexpected happened, something that would change their lives forever. One day, during one of her regular flights, Denise noticed a familiar face on board. It was Glenn Campbell, a well-known star in country music. Most people would have been too nervous or shy to approach someone like him. But Denise wasn't thinking about fear. She was thinking about Alan. She walked right up to him and told him about her husband. She didn't beg or make big demands. She simply asked for a chance. To her surprise, Glenn didn't ignore her. Instead, he listened. Then he handed her his manager's business card. It may have seemed like a small gesture, but in that moment, everything shifted. That single card became a symbol of hope, a reason to keep going and believe that something bigger was possible. After settling into Nashville, Alan landed his first steady job in the mailroom at the Nashville network. It wasn't glamorous at all. He sorted mail, delivered packages, and kept a low profile. But while doing this simple job, he was quietly observing everything around him. He listened, learned, and studied the music industry from the inside. Whenever he had free time, he would sit in on recordings of a TV show called You Can Be a Star. It was a singing competition, and Alan paid close attention to every performer. Deep down, he knew he belonged on that stage. Then, in 1986, the moment he had been waiting for finally arrived, completely out of the blue. He was sitting in the audience like he always did when someone suddenly asked if he wanted to perform. Without hesitation, he stepped forward. He sang "He Stopped Loving Her Today," a powerful song originally made famous by George Jones. So, what do you think about Alan Jackson's shocking revelation? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.